Housing crisis continuing to be a crisis for many people, perhaps folk who have given up the hope of getting their own home and are consigned to generation rent has meant that perhaps the chance, the opportunity to become a landlord is looking better than it has previously. Joining me on the program now from Christian Savings, Dan Mazengarb, kia ora. Good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Sure. Good morning, Andrew. Yeah, look, we love talking about housing, farming, and tourism in New Zealand. Those
Yeah,
are the sort of the three tenets of our economy. It
yeah,
seems at times, and
exactly.
and it is a big problem, isn't it? We have one of the worst housing affordability issues in the world, and so it is something that we should be watching very closely when new governments come in.
Now, some people may have the philosophy or even the theology that owning more than one home when there's a housing crisis is just morally not sustainable. For other people, though, they would say, well, no, actually, if I can be a great landlord, maybe I'm helping to provide a home from somebody who otherwise would have less options.
Yeah, look, I think there's good arguments in either camps there, but I would really, I think, especially for our audience, would really encourage people to think about if they are going to own more than one property,
Yeah.
how they can really make a difference in people's lives, because we do have a high rental cost, and there are a lot of people who are vulnerable when their house gets sold or rents jump to unsustainable levels. And the data shows that if you can give people safe, long, and secure tenure
Mm.
of where they live, whether that be renting or owning, that underpins basically all of the socioeconomic indicators. So they've done longitudinal studies in this area. Safe, secure, long tenure will improve literacy at school, will improve people's chances of getting off addictions to drugs or
Yeah.
alcohol. Certainty of place is a massive factor. So if you are going to be a landlord and you are going to go down that track, I would really encourage people to think about how they can do it in a
Mhm.
way that is just not maximizing their own back pocket, but giving back to a family who needs that help.
I mean, that's a key issue, really, isn't it? Rents have been going up and up in recent times. Well, all costs have been going up and up. But as a landlord, as long as you've got enough to cover the expenses, or perhaps even if you haven't, not necessarily putting the rent up every time you need to, because I mean, this works in favour of the landlords as well. If you can have a long-term, safe, secure tenancy with tenants who are looking after your property, then that's actually in your favour socially as well as financially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about getting a long-term partnership there. I mean, I think there is an area of the rental market that is particularly difficult, and we,
Yeah.
to call a spade, there is a segment of tenants that are will be more unstable. They
Mm.
will throw parties. They
Yeah.
will get up to mischief. They will knock holes in your walls, and so that particular cohort is probably best left to um, you know charities or community-based housing providers
Yeah.
who are specialised in that sort of wraparound social support that can manage those sort of extra problems. But for a lot of everyday Kiwis, renting is going to be the reality uh, going forward. And for me personally, I think it's a shame. I'd love to see us return back to sort of maybe the 40s utopia where maybe you buy a house, but we're a long way off that
Yeah.
at this point.
Certainly, and changes in government policy. I mean, some critics have said, "Oh, this is anti-tenant and pro-landlord," but some changes in the tax law regarding what you can get tax deductions on. If anything, that takes a little bit of the financial pressure off landlords to not necessarily have to max out the rent in order to pay the bills. Of course, that's leaning into the goodwill of great landlords. Not everybody's going to respond that way. They might just pocket the difference.
Yeah, well, look, I can assure you that no landlord is going to say, "Oh, look, I've had a benefit now. I'm gonna reduce the rent, I did put it up 50 bucks last year because of the rules, and now I'll meet you halfway and I'll drop it by 25."
Yeah,
That's probably not going to happen.
not often at least. Yeah,
Not often, at least. And so, look, what does it mean? It might be positive for people who want to get into their first home through the rental avenue.
okay.
So potentially they're living with parents, and maybe they can get their first home by buying a house and renting it out. And maybe that's going to make it a bit more achievable. So maybe for some, the access into first home ownership could be improved, and
Yep.
that is a good thing. What I and this is a personal opinion, I don't want to see us returning to a point where the property market becomes a commodity market,
Yeah.
and we buy and sell each other's houses,
Mm.
and for fun, and the gap between the rich and the poor only increases. And so I think that's one thing that I'd just be a little bit nervous about.
On the supply and the demand issue, though, this change of policy may encourage more people to get into the landlord game, I suppose, increasing supply, taking a little bit of pressure off of rental price increases, or perhaps people saying, you know what, I'll take my Airbnb, make it a long-term rental instead. More supply, less pressure to push rents up, in theory?
Yeah, look, there's a little bit of maybe around the fringes there, but I actually do think the key problem is is building.
Yep.
This policy is not. When we talk about supply, it will. We need to build more houses.
Yep.
That's the bottom. We've got 25,000 people on the wait list for social housing who are currently living in motels, cars, overcrowded garages. And the figure that was used a couple of years ago was that the government was spending $1 million a day subsidising people's housing.
Wow.
And that's you think about that figure, and that is money that is just being spent as an expense. If we could turn that into building a whole lot more houses, so that we didn't have to subsidise to the same extent, I think that's where we're going to see some big change. And I think the big focus right now, or the microscope, is what is this government going to do around funding there, because the pot that was set aside for social housing has run out.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to renew that fund? We do have a serious problem when it comes to the social housing waitlist.
Now, hey, appreciate your comments. As always, of course, people can find out more about the work of Christian Savings at your website. But Dan, appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.